Hey everyone, welcome back to the Henry Hudson Hour. I'm glad you're here. Today's episode, I'm joined by a returning guest, Jarvis Lampley. It's always good to have Jarvis on because the conversations tend to be real, honest, and grounded in what's actually going on around us day to day. This time around, we're talking about everything from rising gas prices and how they're hitting people directly to bigger picture topics like the Supreme Court and how decisions at that level trickle down into everyday life. But we also balance that out with some lighter things, entertainment, movies, and just finding ways to stay positive in the middle of everything. Hey Jarvis, how are you today?
I am doing peachy. It's just a beautiful Sunday. Just trying to weather everything until I go to work tomorrow.
That's good. I'm glad to hear it. It's actually quite gorgeous here as well. It's in the 70s. It's sunny. It's really pretty, a pretty day.
Yes, it's the same way around here. It's just really gorgeous. People out with their families and just a beautiful day to be out. No rain in sight.
So it's good to have you back. What's been standing out to you in your day-to-day life lately?
Mainly gas prices and just the redistricting that is going to be on our topic. So have had to fill up my gas tank, and gas has been jumping around lately. And with the redistricting, just really important just to, just make sure that my voter registration is still in check.
Do you feel like it's gotten harder to just manage normal routines with how things are right now with gas prices?
Somewhat. I don't really travel a lot. I just go into work. I go home, do my cardio. I may come out to downtown, and I may do a couple of things. So it's not affecting me as everybody else that have to drive from Tennessee to go to work or whatever. But it hasn't impacted me a lot. But for others, it could.
And how do you personally adjust when those kind of changes start to add up? Do you make cuts in your budget at other places, or do you just kind of roll with it?
Okay, yeah. So, I just had to trim back quite a bit because of the fact that it's taking $30 now to fill up my car. In the past, it took $20, which that's a $10 difference. So $10 can $10 can make a little slight difference in what I want to buy and such. Like I said, it hasn't really impacted me a lot, and that's not being ignorant on the matter. It's the fact that I don't travel a lot, and I don't drive all around the city to where I have to make those kind of changes. But it's just, it's impacting everybody else around here.
And when you look at what's happening around the country right now, what stands out to you the most?
Gas prices, the Supreme Court, again, making their decisions to overrule laws that have been in place the last 100 years or so. Democracy still in shambles, and Trump just doing what Trump does. Do
you feel like people really understand how those decisions affect them directly?
I think they understand to an extent. It's just the fact that they like to blame both sides, and that's still a thing that people do. Like, they blame both sides of government. They blame Democrats for not doing a lot. They blame Republicans for doing a lot, to impact their lives negatively. And people are just not, they don't really educate themselves on both parties. And they listen to podcasts, and they listen to networks, that feed them whatever they want to hear, instead of being educated on the matter, and that's an argument to be made. Like, people listen to podcasts like here to understand what to do, but I feel like they're being fed, all this Kool-Aid stuff that shouldn't have to be. So that's where we're at.
Has anything recently made you stop and think this is bigger than I realized?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's impacted the way that I talk to people. When I have a couple of people that I talk to every now and then, and they still give me the little side eye and be like, "Oh, you really believe that the Democrats are really going to do it, or not?" Or they like to, body language matters more than just the talking itself, because I can read people and understand what impacts them. When I talk about certain things with them, not all the time, but just to an extent. But yeah, it does impact, just because I care about politics, I care about my democracy, I care about the next person, I care about you, and I care about everybody else, that, wants to live and thrive in this world. And unfortunately, um, it just has an impact. It really does.
Yeah, the gas prices are really killing me, and I don't really travel very much either, but I'm not looking forward to getting gas. I need to either today or tomorrow, and I'm really dreading it.
Uh-huh.
How do you decide what to pay attention to and what to tune out?
So my method is to look at entertainment, for example. And I'll give you an example on that. I watched Michael last Saturday. I was looking at the people on socials. They were pretty excited about Michael, and they want to see something that will generate a lot of positivity into their everyday lives. Just with the movie coming out and how it has brought people together. I mean, it really brought people together in a way that I haven't seen in a long time. Just because people, they really do need that positivity. They need something to just look forward to, just for fun. But
So it sounds like that's what's been helping you stay grounded lately.
yeah, it's
Entertainment.
really entertainment. Just looking at different videos, dog videos. Now I still listen. I still watch dog videos, just to keep myself grounded. But I look at content like that because I don't really like hearing negative stuff all the time. Like, that really does something to me mentally. Like, it's like, what in the world is so like what is out there to be happy about? What is out there to um, generate some kind of positive mindset? So I'll look at content where it keeps me that way.
Do you think that entertainment plays a bigger role now than it used to in people's lives?
I think it's the same. I think it's been the same for a long time. I think people, they look to entertainment to take their focus off the negative. They look at entertainment to take their focus off of the hellscape that we are in right now. They just don't want to be succumb to a lot of the negative news that impacts them mentally and that impacts them physically. Because also it takes a physical toll. I mean, people,
Oh,
I mean,
yes.
all they do is they watch the news. They are consumed with all of this 24-hour information, and unfortunately, the man in the White House has a lot to do with that. And it used to not be that way, but people, they turn to entertainment to excite themselves and to bring their families together, bring their friends together. But really, most importantly, entertainment does a lot to um, it does a lot to make people feel good about that there is still that fun out there, if I'm, trying to make sense of the matter.
Yeah, I don't know what it is about going to a movie that feels different from just scrolling online, but
Mm-hmm.
it's such a different experience. I think it's part of the experience is being part of a community
Mm-hmm.
with other people. I think that really is different than when you're sitting isolated on your phone on the
Mm-hmm.
internet. It's almost like the same as like going to a concert for people that really like to do that.
Right. People, they want to search for something that they can talk about for years. How they went to a Lady Gaga concert, for example, how the fun they have had with people. Um, and they just want to have a story to tell. At the end of the day, people, they search for a story. Like they search for something to go to and share a story so that it can be passed down to their family, just whatever. Like they look for stuff like that.
Right. And if you could go back a few years from now, what would you tell your younger self about where things are right now?
Just to be mindful that got to be vigilant. It really doesn't matter um, where things may be right now. Well, a lot matters right now, but keep the ball rolling and be vigilant and don't repeat the same mistakes that unfortunately that we have made. And I'm just saying collectively as because we were voting for our favorites, we were supporting our favorites. And unfortunately, when our favorites don't win elections, when they don't win the primaries, well, we start to complain. We start to whine online and we start to tell people, well, I'm not going to vote. And why did that person have to be the candidate of the Democratic Party, to be the president? And I'm just saying that, I'm just saying we as collectively, because we all have to understand what the future will hold. And this comes now, like this, whatever happened in the past is in the past. Now has to be the time to set the precedent for the future for Gen A that is going to be our next voting bloc. Got to set an example, or otherwise we are going to be in the same situation that we are in now.
What's something from your past that still shapes how you move through life today?
So when I was younger, um, I had a speech disability, and I have been working on it for years. So I had a stuttering. Well, I have a stuttering problem. It may not sound like this on my podcast with you, but when I talk to people and I try to get my point across, sometimes my words don't really flow in together. And maybe it's because I'm behind a microphone and I'm looking at um, just what is in front of me. And I put all these thoughts together to make my sentences come out better. Um, and it was worse when I was younger. There were times that I couldn't even get a single word out. Like with yesterday, for example. Yesterday, as an example, I struggled with that when I was a kid. Wednesday, for example, I struggled with that when I was a kid. It's words that I struggled with because I guess the syllables just didn't let me utter the words. But I use practice, and I always told, my mom have always told me just to take my time talking because she understood my situation. I even went to speech therapy classes when I was a kid. So it shaped
I
me.
did too. I had a speech impediment as well, but
Oh,
I didn't have a stutter. I don't know. Mine was more of just a very thick Southern drawl. And they wanted to correct it. So I went to speech therapy for years when I was a kid in elementary school. And
Wow.
they changed the way that I talk. I had like I would say Saul and drawl instead of draw or saw. Sorry about the cat. She came to visit. And
Hi, Pasha. Sasha.
It's Sasha. So I can actually relate to your struggles with that because I had to go to speech therapy for like 5 years. So I had a very, very thick accent when I was a kid, a very, very thick accent.
That's interesting to hear that from you.
It was hard to understand me because of it, I guess. I don't know exactly why it warranted me going to speech therapy, but apparently it did.
How did that impact you?
Oh, it was fine. I was good at the speech therapy, so I kind of enjoyed doing it. I was really a good at it. So I just remember the teacher, she always was like, enunciate, and things like that, that I remember.
Yeah, I recalled my speech therapist tell me the same thing, to pronunciate your words and take your time talking. Yeah, I remember those times, and it really helped me a lot. Not to jump off topic with this one, but I took a theater when I was a junior in high school, and maybe that's where my confidence started to break out. Like, I was able to talk to people and take my time talking. How it, how I was able to, how it was able to mold me into the person that I am now. So I thank myself for putting myself in that situation.
Right. I was going to ask you, is it something that you've learned to manage over time, or is it still something you're actively working through?
So there are times that people can ask me a question, and you know how I talk fast. I mean, me and you have had phone conversations, and I talk fast. Just like now, I'm talking like, fast. I'm not fast, but just talking just enough to get my point across. And it's manageable. It's manageable. It's not like I have a severe stutter. It's not like I was that person when I was growing up. But it took time for me to really manage what I was going through, and just being that, just managing it on a daily basis. That's pretty much it for me on that end.
And have you had any recent moments where something small turned into something bigger than expected?
Last week. So let me tell you just a little bit, not too long, but let me just tell you a little bit about what happened. So I got off from work and I usually turn on this road that takes me home. Well, there was a line, there's a school that is on the same street. So there was a train track that was in between the school and just a traffic light. I'll put it that way. So the train was stuck on the road, or no, it was stuck on the train tracks. It was a long line of traffic. So I ended up having to turn, hoping that the train would eventually proceed. Well, when I was about to make a U-turn, this person on this motorcycle kept on riding his motorcycle. He kept on, driving, and I thought he was going to stop for me. Well, when I was finishing my U-turn, this person on this motorcycle had the nerve to go around me, could have hit my car. I mean, a motorcycle can damage a car. Like the person wasn't even slowing down. And so I honked at him and I said, you hurt me. No, I was saying, you saw me coming, and then he started yelling. He probably hurt me. So I had no choice but to get onto the turning lane where he was going, but he was opposite of me going to the right. And he looked at me and he was just saying how he was going to hurt me. I roamed up my window. I was like, dude, look, if you're in a relationship, I really feel sorry for your wife or your girlfriend, because you are terrible. Like, you have enough road rage to be in jail right now. Like, that is how violent you are. Like, that didn't have to be that.
Right. I think that everyone gets in road rage incidents from time to time. I was almost obliterated the other day, but it wasn't really a road rage incident. But this vehicle, I was going straight down a street and this car just turns left and turns straight into me. And I was like, surely they're going to slow down or stop. And they didn't. And I had to swerve out of the lane I was in into the bike lane to avoid getting hit by them. And then they just went ahead and went. And as I had moved over for them to go, and I was like, what are you doing? Like, what is going through people's minds when they're driving like that? I don't understand it. It was legitimately like they wanted to hit me. It was insane. I was like,
That
what
is
are you
awful.
doing? It was so weird.
I'm just happy that you're alive. Like, that could have been your life. That could have been your car totaled. And
yeah, it would have totaled if I had not been able, if there had been like a bicycle in the bicycle lane, and I had not been able to swerve around them, they would have totaled my car.
People are idiots.
It was like unbelievable. I was like, what are you doing? Like, I'm going straight down a street. I don't have a stop sign. I don't have a stoplight. I have the right of way, right?
Exactly.
And they're just turning left onto the street from a stop sign. And I was like, what the fuck? Like, it was bizarre. So
yeah,
do those kind of moments stick with you after they happen, or do you just move on?
Not to really be into Taylor mode, because I'm not a Taylor Swift fan, but I would shake that shit off. I shake it off every single time. I do not let stuff like that bother me. It kind of like, I let it bother me for like 15 minutes. 15 minutes. I'll give it 15 minutes. And I was just like, okay, back to reality, Jarvis. Back to reality. People are going to be that person. They're going to be ugly. They're going to be distasteful. People like that, they're just really awful people. Just imagine if someone like that can echo that kind of violence to somebody. Just imagine what they do at home with their children or with the people that they engage with. Like, can you just about imagine a person like that? Like, I couldn't imagine anyone. I couldn't imagine being next to anyone, or even let alone, I can't imagine someone going through life being like that. It's not like I was trying to hurt him. And it's not like I was saying things to him. I was mad, but it's not like I was like, bitch, I'm going to hurt you. He threatened me. Like, he said he's going to kick my ass.
The negativity. What's one thing you think people should take more seriously in their everyday lives?
I say two things: their health and their mental health, their physical health and their mental health. And the reason why I say that is because the physical health can be just as damaging as mental health, because a lot of the environment and the news that we consume on a daily, it really can bring someone down. It can make someone go insane. It can make someone do things that is out of character for them. Got to take care of your mental health. Got really have to take care of your mental health. And the physical health part of it is, just take care of yourself. We consume a lot of foods that, are chemically processed, and people sometimes they don't really take their health seriously. And this is probably, part of what we would talk about later. But it has a lot to do with why people's health insurances are just straight through the roof expensive. And that's not really, it shouldn't have to be that way, but look at what insurance providers, look what they are doing to people that are unhealthy. They like to toy with their lives. If you're not healthy, then too bad. You're going to be paying so much money. But if you're healthy, then yeah, we'll get you a pass. And that's just the way that our country is. But yeah, people got to take care of their physical health and just their mental health. Just take it seriously. Politics play a lot into the mental health part of it. In my personal opinion, it does. But that's very important.
Always a great conversation with Jarvis. Always appreciate how real and grounded he keeps things. There's a lot in there that connects directly to what people are dealing with every day, whether it's the bigger picture or just how it shows up in your own life. We're going to stay in that same lane and shift gears a little bit now because a lot of what we just talked about ties into what's been happening in the news recently. So let's get into it. Here's what's been going on this week. Do you have the news packet? Jarvis.
Oh, you're asking me?
Yeah, do you have the news packet?
Oh, yeah. I thought you were going to pull it up.
I am.
Okay.
So the first story we're covering is about the Voting Rights Act being gutted. The U.S. Supreme Court has struck another severe blow to the Voting Rights Act. The U.S. Supreme Court, in a 6-3 decision along partisan lines, ruled that Louisiana's 2024 election map, which created a second majority Black congressional district, was an unconstitutional racial gerrymander. Although the court technically kept Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act intact, Wednesday's decision is the latest in a series of rulings that have all but gutted the landmark 1965 law, which came out of the civil rights movement and protected the collective voting power of racial minorities. Experts expect the ruling to diminish minority representation across all levels of government. This is terrible news. Honestly,
it's awful.
It's really awful.
It's downright awful. It's probably one of the worst things that, alongside with overturning Roe, that this is exactly what this Supreme Court that is compromised is continuing to do to people, women, and now to minorities, especially Black people. It's just to the point that the Supreme Court is on the verge of rolling back protections for minorities, to vote now. It's a shame when you have states that they have a higher concentration of minorities in certain districts, and they are unable to really expand on redistricting in those areas. And the reason why they are doing this is because they want to usher out Black congressional members out in Congress. They want to make it harder for Black people, especially minorities. They want to make it harder for them to actually vote for their congressional candidates in their districts. And unfortunately, this is, this is really just one of those examples that it's all about preserving my superiority. And I'm going to just go there. It really just has a lot to do with um, preserving that in these states, and especially in the American South, where a lot of states have a majority of Black people. You know, when you look at Mississippi, when you look at Alabama, Georgia, South Carolina, Louisiana, North Carolina, um, and this is exactly what they want to target. They want to target certain groups that are high concentration of voters of the Democratic Party. Um, this Supreme Court, this is probably just one of the very factors of trying to disenfranchise Black voters. That's really all it is, because as I read here, it says Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act prohibits voting practices, procedures, or map drawing that discriminates on the basis of color, race, or language, minority status. And then I was making my input and said that their argument doesn't exploit this piece of the Voting Rights Act. They're, meaning the Supreme Court, as they are trying to gaslight the public into believing that Louisiana, who end up bringing this case, singled out certain people running for congressional seats. So the purpose of the Supreme Court striking down this case is to eliminate the number of Black congressional seats, as I had echoed, in heavily minority-driven districts to disenfranchise Black voters in the South. And SCOTUS did this in the intention of gutting the Voting Rights Act, or sections of it that coincides with the Civil Rights Act. So they want to disenfranchise Black voters, and they want to make it harder for Democrats to have some kind of advantage in the midterms. This is really just to support the Republicans. Of course, Donald Trump, he installed these people.
Right. It's basically cheating, in my opinion.
It really is.
Blatantly. Because they know that they cannot win. I think that it's outrageous. And I think that the Voting Rights Act being dismembered since 2013 by the increasingly conservative Supreme Court, it just really, it's very sad, to be honest with you. And they make an argument, the right has an argument for this, that it's racist to draw congressional lines based on minority populations, which is bullshit.
Yeah, this is what Trump wanted. He wanted to install those justices, his handpicked justices, to do his dirty work. This is likely part of Project 2025, which is to allow the Supreme Court to do whatever they want to feed his agenda. Never ever.
The major exception was a decision just 2 years ago that had upheld the court's past rulings on Section 2 in a redistricting case out of Alabama. Are you aware of that case? Do you remember that? I don't remember it.
I did read up on a little bit of it when I was looking into what our governor was doing. I did read a little bit on that. I'm not really too much aware on that. I'm going to just be completely honest. But I did read up on that. Well, actually, I read up on that just yesterday, how they upheld that.
Interesting. It's interesting how they will uphold some and then gut other parts of the law. It's fascinating, really. I think there's very little consistency.
Right. Yeah, that's
it's terrible news.
That's where we are. That's why it's so important to take these elections seriously. People are going to pay for it. They're going to pay for it. And it's more than ever now, probably more so than it was 2 weeks ago, a week ago, maybe days ago. It's very important now to people need to just go out and, I mean, they have to vote. They have to vote for, they have to do it. They have to do it.
And so in your
I know
state,
that's calm coming from me, but it's
in your state, it sounds like your governor, Kay Ivey, said Friday that she would call a special session in an effort to redraw the state's congressional and legislative maps. The decision reversed her earlier statement that she would wait for the Supreme Court to settle the state's pending legal arguments. Alabama is currently enjoined by the courts from changing its congressional districts before 2030.
Governor Ivey is a snake. She is probably one of the worst governors, and I have seen governors where they are just bad people. She is just she's just a really bad person. Like, how dare she tells the media, or how dare she tells the reporters, I don't know if she went to national news and did it, but she told reporters that she was not going to call a special session to redraw the maps. And not even 36 hours later, Henry, she did what she wasn't. I mean, she literally reversed course, and she went ahead and she's going to call a special session to redraw the maps. I mean, to redraw on the state map. So I noted here that she claimed to have waited until a Supreme Court decision was reached that would have prohibited states to expand on gerrymandering into heavily minority districts. And then I said this was not a last-minute playbook. So she intended on doing it anyway without SCOTUS being involved in this. So this is a Republican governor who saw what Texas did, and which is the blueprint for the reason why this whole gerrymandering mess started. She looked at other Republican states and she was like, oh, okay, so since Alabama has all of these Republican voters, and since we really just have a few districts that are Democratic, why not just change everything in the state? Why not we just redistrict everything into becoming pretty much a whole Republican controlled state? This was in the books for a long time. This was not waiting for a SCOTUS decision. I don't think that she was doing that. She's not going to gaslight me as an Alabama voter into believing that this was a last minute decision. She was intending to do that. In my personal opinion, that was what she wanted to do. She was looking at what other Republicans were doing. And by the way, she's not even running for re-election. She wants to preserve her legacy by making sure that Republicans have, and might as well say, a supermajority in the state house. That is exactly what she wants to preserve her legacy on. Birmingham and Montgomery have a higher concentration of Black people than people in Huntsville. In Huntsville, the reason why there is a Republican controlled district up here is because even though Huntsville is one of the largest cities in North Alabama, or is one of the largest cities in the state, there are other towns and there are other counties that vote Republican. They don't have a lot of black people. I'm going to just put it that way. They don't have a lot of black people. So a lot of white people, a lot of rural white voters are keep voting Republican. They have a lot more. They have a lot more Republican voters in those counties. Huntsville is kind of split down the middle because our military, most military service members or most military families will support Republicans because Republicans, they support a military, they support what you call it, defense. They support defense spending more so than Democrats. So that's the reason why military service members and family members, they vote Republican. Unfortunately, we are living a different timeline to where Trump, he can do whatever he wants now with the military. And, he's putting our men and women in danger abroad by using methods, to start illegal wars. I just don't see how military families can support that. But again, they
Right.
they have men and they have their spouses and children
there's some people in the military who are not conservative for sure, but I have some friends in the military that are not conservatives, but for the most part, I guess they are. You're right. And yeah, I think this is just another case of them disenfranchising Black voters, is what it sounds like to me. Dual Ross, lead counsel for the NAACP's Legal Defense Fund, told Alabama.com that the Supreme Court's Calais finding does not apply to Alabama's pending cases. And his organization has made that case in a filing to the Supreme Court. So there is hope that it will be overturned, but with the Supreme Court being what it is today, it's doubtful.
And that's the unfortunate part. Supreme Court had the last say. I think if the Supreme Court wasn't involved in this crap, if they just didn't stick their nose into trying to pretty much ban gerrymandering into minority districts, that's just the way I'm going to put it. If they didn't stick their nose into it, then I think there would have been a chance that our governor wouldn't have been able to be successful. But she's going to listen to what the Supreme Court. She's going to stay by it. She's not changing her mind. This is a woman who, I mean, she's just not a good governor. I don't know why people want to give her accolades into what she has done. She has done nothing but make Alabamians. She has done nothing but make people feel more miserable living here. People that come here to Alabama, they want to live here, they want to raise their families here. I mean, women, they can't have an abortion here. So that's not an accolade. Doctors, they can be in prison up to 99 years in prison for performing an abortion. That's not an accolade. That's pretty much just, making lives miserable for both women and doctors to be in this state. But that's just what it is around here. And I had never liked her. I just think she's just a very awful person. But this right here tips the cake right here. So you're going to give a middle finger to Black people that live in your state, and they cannot even vote for their own congressional candidates because they live in a minority. They live in heavily minority areas. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's bullshit. So let's talk about how gas prices jumped to $4.39 per gallon in the biggest one-day increase since the Iran ceasefire was announced. Since the war started, the average nationwide price of unleaded gas has risen more than 47%. This is honestly kind of terrifying to me. And the reason why, which we'll get more into later, but it increases the cost of everything. And it increases inflation across the board. This week, price pressures worsened as President Donald Trump said that he wants to maintain the blockade on Iranian ports, which the U.S. Navy has been enforcing since April 13th. It's just really upsetting.
It's embarrassing that this is where the country is. It's even more embarrassing that we are we're fighting with Israel. We're fighting with Israel to fight another country that we have nothing to do with. Like, we should not have anything to do with getting involved into conflict matters with another country. But because Donald Trump's bestie, Netanyahu, was like, come join our fight while we are still supplying, while we're still funding, not supplying, we are still funding billions of dollars into their country to make sure they have weapons to destroy whatever they are doing. This is the result. We could not have had to be here, but when you attack a country that supplies most of its oil now, they're the Middle East. This is a country that supplies most of the oil to other countries. America, we get oil from Iran and from Saudi Arabia.
Not even that much. I mean, most of the oil from Iran, and I read this, goes to East Asian countries like Japan and South Korea, and that's where prices are actually the highest right now. Most of their oil is going to those countries, and a very small amount actually comes to the United States, which is why it's so stupid to me that it's affecting our gas prices so much. And personally, as a Texan, I think the most ridiculous thing is that I can't, as a Texan, pay for Texas a fair price for Texas oil. Like, let me buy oil from Texas as a Texan and pay a fair price for it. Why do I have to pay a premium for foreign oil when we produce enough oil here in Texas to provide oil to all of Texas? I mean, we're self-sufficient. We don't have to rely on any other state or country to give us oil here. So it's kind of outrageous. I think that OPEC is stupid. I think it's bullshit. I think that the state should be able to buy its own oil at a fair price and just stop importing. Exporting.
And you do make a point. I mean, you make an excellent point. Look, you're a Texan. I mean, you know your stuff. You know your stuff in Texas. You know the oil out there. You know the oil refineries that are in that area. So, look, you know your stuff. But it's unfortunate that the reason why we are also in this mess, and I want to just tell it to your audience. I want to tell it to your audience why this is one of the reasons why we are in this mess. So, my take on this whole oil thing with Iran, so back in 2008, when oil prices were sky through the roof, I remembered I was paying $4. I think once time I paid like $4.39, $4.30 something, whatever, for a gallon of gas. And I thought we would never see those gas prices again. So, but we were also in a different time where we were fighting both in Iraq and we were fighting in Afghanistan. And all these other contributing factors start to play in. with the hurricane situation, and that led higher to higher gas prices. But what I was trying to make a point in is that Republicans have always wanted to do offshore drilling. George W. Bush at that time didn't mind doing offshore drilling. He didn't mind it. Democrats were not on board with it. They were like, look, this is going to contaminate um, the environment out there in Alaska. It's going to contaminate a lot of our resources. A lot of people would be affected. And the offshore drilling, thankfully, the offshore drilling wasn't a thing. Thankfully, it wasn't even a thing, because that would be disastrous for both the environment and as far as our ecosystem. So Republicans have always wanted to do offshore drilling. And so they were so reliant on trying to get us out of depending on foreign dependency that that's what they were wanting. They were wanting to drill offshore to produce our own oil. And that whole Keystone pipeline thing that they were also wanting, thankfully, that wasn't the thing. Can you imagine building a pipeline that went through every city, every county in this damn country? Can you about imagine that would even have been a thing if Republicans had their way and it would have been passed to build a Keystone pipeline? I mean, look, that would be extremely devastating to the lands out there in the Central Plains. And the fact
Right. I
that
know a lot
anything
of
could have.
Native American tribes opposed it because it was going to go through their land, and they did not want it, and they protested it heavily and basically won out against it.
The Trump can care less about oil prices. He can care less about gas prices. Republicans can care less about gas prices. Do not let these Republicans gaslight you into believing that they are doing something about these gas prices, because they don't care to fix the problem. They did not authorize this war, by the way. We are paying for it. It's not funny, but we are paying for airmen and women to be killed. Look, we should not even be in this situation. Congress should have gotten their tails off of their seats and voted down on this war. But unfortunately, the War Powers Resolution, well, it keeps. They want this war, okay? They want this war. They want an illegal war that's coming out of our tax dollars, that's coming out of our pockets every single day.
Right. The 1973 War Powers Resolution requires the president to get authorization from Congress in order to maintain military forces in a conflict for more than 60 days. And it's 50 years. However, Congress has not actually used the law to require the removal of U.S. forces from a foreign conflict. And they could use it to force the removal of forces from Iran. They absolutely could, but obviously they don't care. So I think we're going to be stuck there for quite a while. Supposedly it'll take about 3 to 4 months after the Strait of Hormuz is reopened for gas prices to go back to normal. And it doesn't look like that's happening anytime soon. So I think this is just a new normal and we're just fucked.
I'm going to make a last point on this while we're on this topic. So gas prices are not going to go down back to $2.50 and some change anytime soon. It's not going to happen. And the reason why it's not going to happen is because it takes time for all of this to alleviate. Even when the Strait of Hormuz, I'm trying to pronounce it right. When it reopens, that's an if it reopens, it's not going to bring down prices right away. It's going to take time. And you also have to consider the commodities that are coming out of that area, like if nothing gets fixed anytime soon, if the reopening doesn't happen anytime soon, um, the oil prices will continue to push further up. We got hurricane season coming up. Oh, wow. Can you but imagine hurricane season coming up? Can you but imagine that in the Gulf? Are you talking about these named storms that's going to hit the Gulf? So you have that. That's going to push prices even higher because guess what? When hurricanes, once they hit the Gulf, guess what happens? The oil refineries start to shut down. And oh, by the way, we have to worry about food prices and we have to worry about the price of everything going up because of this fact that the Strait of Hormuz is not even reopening. This man wants to try to cut some kind of deal. Like he wants to make some kind of deal with Iran, and Iran is saying, "Look, we're not going to accept this. You put us into your fight with Israel. Like you brought this upon yourself." And he's still blockading. He still is blocking the Iranian ports from going through that area because he has the Navy out there to do that. So it's going to be very challenging. Even my friend was warning. He was actually saying, and he said to me that the summer is going to get worse because it's it's just bad right now. And he's not even with the military.
Yeah,
he just knows
demand goes up during the summer, so
exactly.
because all the kids are on break. So let's move on to the White House Correspondents' Dinner. I guess we can't get through the hour without talking about this. Of course, I'm sure, as all of you already know, Trump was targeted by a shooter during the White House Correspondents' Dinner. A California teacher and engineer accused of opening fire outside the White House Correspondents Association dinner believed it was his duty to target Trump administration officials, according to a note he sent family members about 10 minutes before the Saturday attack. And this happened last weekend.
Yes. So,
okay. Yeah.
Oh, you're saying?
Yeah, I was asking you. So he lives in the Los Angeles suburb of Torrance. Cole Thomas Allen, age 31, same age as me, is armed suspect. Federal authorities subdued near the packed ballroom at the Washington Hilton, where President Donald Trump and other White House officials gathered with journalists. A federal official familiar with the case told NBC News. He was armed with a shotgun, handgun, and knives when he rushed a security checkpoint and ran toward the ballroom where the black tie dinner was being held. Authorities said he exchanged gunfire with law enforcement and was tackled to the ground.
So here's my thing on this thing, because I remembered I was actually looking at my socials about Michael Jackson. Actually, I was supposed to have gone to see the movie the night when it happened, and a notification came up on my phone about the shooting at the White House Correspondent Dinner. I was like, holy shit. So I clicked on it, and unfortunately, it was for Trump. And look, this is crazy. This has never happened before. Out of all the many years that journalists have came together, reporters, journalists have came together to roast a president, or to roast a sitting president, rather. This has never happened before. But this is not surprising, considering that this is like the third time now that Trump has escaped an assassination attempt. One happened in Butler back in 2024 when it was during the elections, and then another one happened when he was at his golf course at Mar-a-Lago. The guy was subdued, and now this happened. And I was just noting that the man, he said that the security was lax. So that had to have been that the White House just didn't really have a lot of security. I mean, these days, you would think that the White House would have security. You would think that events like that would have top notch security, like they would have all of their Secret Service men and the police. Like you would think stuff like that. But he said that the security was so lax that he just came in with some weapons and breached the security. And I mean, he was aiming for. I mean, he was trying to get the man. He was trying to get his officials under him too. But like I said, this is not really surprising coming from a person that he wants that kind of attention. I mean, unfortunately, that's just the case. People still, talk about his first people still talk about his first assassination attempt to this day. I think Trump really wants this to be as political as possible, to blame Democrats for violence. And we remember what happened back in back last year, back over the summer of last year, when Democratic candidates or Democratic or sitting congressional Democratic members were targeted in Minnesota. This was last year. Trump wants to make this as political as he can so that it makes Democrats look bad, that they are the bad guys. They are sending out people. And I want to just put it out there. He wants to make it about Democrats sending people, sending voters, sending Democratic voters, or sending, just sending liberals out there to get him. It's always about projecting on something that is not even true. This is what he thrives on.
He plays the blame game. He always has a scapegoat.
Right, exactly. This is what he wants. And unfortunately, he's not even getting that kind of attention because I want to say 2 days after that happened, no one's really been talking about it. Like, they talked about the shooter and how he was from California. And I also wanted to iterate that when we did not really had that much detail about the shooter, he mentioned that he was from California. And I was like, well, of course he would say he's from California because Gavin Newsom is on his ass every single time. Gavin Newsom has his number. He can go toe to toe with that man. Every time that he says something crazy on his socials, look what Gavin Newsom is doing. Look what Governor Newsom is doing. He is always stepping on his neck. So he wants it to be about where the guy came from. And thankfully, he didn't shoot up everybody and whatever, but he wants it to trace it back to liberal, I guess, extremism, if you want to put it that way. But that's his words. Everything's got to be targeted. Everything's got to be targeted.
I think it's not surprising to me that people are trying to murder him, given just how divisive he is. And I think that it's honestly, it's really unsurprising to me personally. And when it happened, I was like, oh, okay. I mean, I didn't really think it was worthy of making me panic. I just thought, this is going to happen again and again.
Until it actually happens. And I don't condone the shooter. I don't condone any political violence. Look, people can resolve differences with each other. It used to be where people could talk to each other. They could engage in conversation without being a Charlie Kirk shooter or, trying to assassinate the man, because he's just so evil and everything. I don't condone any political violence at all. It's just that people like the shooter they are so fed up with fascism, and they are so fed up with the way this country has operated in the last year. And look, this goes to show that political violence is a thing. This is not some White House Down movie or this is not some. This is not. This is no longer a fiction. This is reality. This is reality now. So people, they're going to do what they want now. They're going to go online. They're going to post whatever, and they are going to take it to heart, and they're going to do that kind of stuff. Unfortunately, but this is what Trump got us in. This is exactly what he got us in. He got us to wanting to fight with each other, attack people for, just having different views. It's sad. It's such a very sad thing to see. It's very sad. This is something
It is sad
that happens in third world countries where people, they literally go and try to find their leader and assassinate them. This is what happens in those countries. And it happened here.
It's because people are desperate.
Right.
So let's talk about how, and this isn't the only report. There's so many reports saying this, but Republicans are saying we are already cooked. They're bracing for a midterm reckoning, which is why they're trying to change all the districts. They're scrambling, trying to change the districts because they know they're going to lose. Gas prices are at a 4-year high. Inflation has jumped to a nearly 3-year peak, and Americans are souring on congressional Republicans. President Donald Trump's handling of inflation and the war in Iran and his approval rating, according to multiple articles and polls, is at the lowest point of his second term. The message from the White House is that things are still better than they were under Joe Biden. It is not on its face the stuff of a winning campaign message, a backward-looking defense at a moment when voters are asking forward-looking questions about their grocery bills, gas tanks, and a war with no clear end. And privately, some of Trump's aides even acknowledge it. I think that they're going to lose in a landslide. I think people are fed up, and the war in Iran was really the nail in the coffin.
I love this song. I love it. You know that vintage McDonald's commercial? Loving it. Listen, this is
I'm loving it.
Loving it. But see, this is the thing, though. This is the thing for your listeners. This is the thing. So Republicans they know they're cooked. In their minds, they know they're cooked. And you made an excellent point when you mentioned that they are doing now to try to cheat into being back in power. This is what the Supreme Court, unfortunately, this goes back to the Supreme Court too. The Supreme Court wants this to be a thing because they are handpicked by Trump. These are not constitutionalists. These are his handpicked, might as well say loyalists, who want to see Republican in power, not in control, but in power. So what the Republicans are doing, Republicans are seizing off this opportunity to redraw the maps in their states and their districts so it can give them more power in the midterms. So it can sour on the Democratic edge, as I like to call it. They want to sour on the hopes that Democrats have in turning out for the midterms, whether, it can be the bellwether of their failures, of why they will lose. Republicans right now, they have no skin in this game to really to just do the right thing. They can't do the right thing because these are not your moderates. These are not your Republicans from in the Bush era and from the Clinton era, and from the Reagan era. This is not your typical Republican Party. People need to understand that. These are people that are MAGA. These are MAGA Republicans. These are people that were once Tea Party people. They just have a different name now. They just have a different name. They want this to be a thing. They want to be in power. And like I said, they know that they are cooked because gas prices are just through the roof now. People can't afford to really keep groceries in their home because they are having to spend more money with the whole tariffs that Trump implemented onto countries that he didn't like. That's still a thing. Then you got this ICE situation where Republicans supported ICE going into neighborhoods, snatching people off the streets and in their homes, even murdering people just for protesting. And now you got this crap with this war, an illegal war, our tax dollars going to both Israel and to fight this freakishly stupid conflict, which should really just be between Israel and Iran. But, we interjected ourselves into this matter, and Americans don't want this. Americans oppose this war. I mean, it's. I think it's like I think it's like 2-1, something like that. I mean, it's got to be higher than that from what I read. People are not pleased with this country. They are not pleased with their patriotism. They would much rather support another country right now than being, supporting our men and women. And, look, this is not our military's fault. They just hate the Congress. They hate how they have made this into a circus to where they are kneeling to Trump. May as well, I'm not going to say it on this podcast, but look, this is exactly what they want. Like they want to, like they are looking at Congress. They are looking at them as you're doing for Trump. You're not doing for us. You're not doing for me and you that have elected these people. I'm not saying me and you as liberals, but other people that have voted Republicans, and they just feel betrayed. Maybe that's a good thing, but
right. And it says
very important thing. But the very important thing, though, is to just be vigilant. Just vote, because look, those polls can mean one thing, but we know how that played out in 2024. So
right. Well, of course. Its approval rating among independents is only 25% right now. Asked about the situation with Iran, 66% of respondents said they disapprove of his handling of the war, while only 33% approve. The president's rating on the economy dropped to 34% amid rising gas prices. On the general cost of living, which Trump promised during his presidential campaign to bring down, 76% disapprove of his handling of the issue, with 23% approving. On his handling of inflation, 72% of Americans disapprove. So it's pretty damning numbers that we have here.
All I gotta say is, that's sad. If that doesn't get them out of there, then I don't know what will. I mean, those are pretty damning numbers. Like you said, those are numbers that they should be wiped off the map. With those kind of numbers, they should be wiped off the map in every single state. But yeah, I'm just hoping, that people get it together in this election. They don't rely on polls. They use their conviction,
show up and
to vote.
Mm-hmm.
And oh, by the way, this is not a part of this news packet, but did you hear about those races in Texas last night?
I saw something about that this morning, but I didn't click into it.
Oh, Democrats, they performed very well.
Oh, really? Well, that's good to hear, because I did hear that one Republican won.
Yeah, knock on wood. knock on wood, it takes conviction to turn people out. You know, I was really surprised that Texas even had elections last night. It was mostly mayoral races. Um, I want to say there may have been one race that was congressional, but more it was just mayoral races. But this is the bellwether, okay? This is the bellwether. Your local races matter a lot because people don't look at mayoral races and they're like, this person's made mayor, so what? Um, mayors have a lot of pull into their cities. I mean, look, they have a lot of pull. Their job is to manage a city. So when it comes down to they're bringing jobs into the city and um, just resources that comes into the city, they have to tap into um, their their city council, and then they tap into their congressional members to get something done. Like, yeah, mayors have as much responsibility, they have as much influence as anything. So that makes a difference, and I'm happy that Texas Democrats are, they're finally coming out and saying, look, no more of this. And I'm hoping that this what transcends to that Senate election, not Senate election. Yeah, the Senate election. Senate election. I'm sorry.
Well, we'll see.
I'm
sure it'll be close, but I don't know if it's going to be a upset. So I wanted to talk about top economist Gary Shilling saying a recession and a deep stock market plunge are likely by year end. Gary Shilling is predicting a recession and a steep stock plunge by the year's end. The top economist said a downturn was almost inevitable as consumer spending is likely to decline. He sees the S&P 500 dropping as much as 30% as stocks get punished for inflated valuations. He thinks that there is almost nothing that can stop a U.S. recession this year. The legendary economist and Merrill Lynch alum laid out a grim outlook for markets and the economy in an interview with Business Insider this week. In his view, it's almost inevitable that the U.S. will tip into a recession this year, given ongoing vulnerabilities in multiple areas of the economy. He's also eyeing a big correction for stocks as valuations reach dizzying levels. Shilling said he believes the S&P 500 could end up tumbling by as much as 30%, with the bear market decline potentially arriving by the end of the year. Shilling says he believes that the only things that could prevent a downturn at this point were a bust of fiscal stimulus or continued strength of the U.S. consumer, both of which he thinks are unlikely. He pointed to several signals suggesting the economy is on the verge of a huge downturn. For one, the housing market remains largely frozen as markets expect interest rates to remain elevated. Despite a brief spike in existing home sales last year as mortgage rates dipped, buying activity has slowed significantly as rates have climbed higher in recent weeks. Second, capital expenditures, a measure of investments by businesses into things like new hires and physical equipment, have collapsed across the private sector in recent years. While AI CapEx is booming, broader CapEx grew 3.9% at the end of last year, down from a peak of over 24% during the pandemic. Consumer spending, which makes up around 2/3 of economic growth, has been a ballast for the U.S. economy. Real personal consumption expenditures growth held steady at around a 2% yearly pace in March, but Shilling said it's likely that spending will decline in the next year, giving ongoing pressures on consumers due to the war in Iran and gas prices. And one thing about gas prices being so high is that it increases inflation across the board because energy prices affect everything. So it's going to increase the cost of your groceries. It's going to increase the cost of everything. Everything is affected by gas prices. So when gas prices go up like this, when energy prices increase, that increases in all inflation.
Absolutely spot on. Absolutely spot on. Um, the premise of the reason we are in this situation is because um, it's a multitude of factors. It's the tariffs, and now you got, well, unfortunately, you got this war. I mean, you got this is the trickling down effect. Um, this is the trickling down effect of why we are in this situation. It was not surprising last year, and if I recall, there were quite a few people that were saying that the economy was not going to get any better this year, just because of Trump's tariffs. Now, did people expect a war with Iran? Probably not. But the tariffs had a lot to do with why um, the commodities have gone up. You know, groceries, people are paying more for groceries than they did 5 years ago, even a few years ago. When you go to the grocery aisle and you're seeing your favorite box of cereal being $6, I mean, let alone not even being on sale. Like, you're paying $6 for a box of cereal when maybe a few years ago it was maybe like $4, maybe some change. People are starting to see that they cannot afford essentials. When people cannot afford essentials, when people are not able to really afford anything, this is what makes them draw back on um, their spending. When people don't spend, it affects businesses. Businesses become affected by people that are not spending. When businesses are not making any money, when they are not making any dollars, well, guess what happens? Workers get laid off. Businesses start to get impacted because they don't have that thing called, or somebody called, a worker. People are not able to work because the businesses are not making any profit. They have to either cut back hours to save money, or they have to close business because they're not able to generate any profit. So when they go under and when businesses start shutting down or when they start closing, well, it affects everything else. It affects everything else. Um, it's not just the tariffs. It's not just people out there spending.
Right. And
People
let's not
also are
forget
going to lose
the
jobs.
impact of AI, which is not being remediated by the government at all at this point in time. Republicans don't seem to care. It's just a free for all out there with AI, and AI, I know, is mainly impacting the tech industry at this time. But dozens and dozens of companies have already announced they're laying off thousands of workers that are being replaced by AI. So the job market for recent college graduates has never been worse than it is right now. So there's a combination of many different factors that are playing into this. And I think that it's really bad news for our economy, unfortunately. It's very upsetting to me to see.
We have had conversations about this quite a few times with AI. We have had conversations about this not even long ago, before you did your podcast. And we were talking about AI. We were talking about how companies are using AI to replace humans in the workforce. CEOs have such a bad rep in laying off workers because they don't want to pay their workers. They want to save money because, well, they're just very bad business people. Look, there are some CEOs that are small business owners that they care about their workers. Kudos to those people. I'm talking about your CEOs that exist, that they can care less about benefits and they can care less about um, livable wages to offer to their workers. They can care less about that. They only want to preserve that dollar for themselves. It's not about to generate any kind of job growth. If these people, if CEOs, if they were the kind of people that, if company CEOs were the kind of people that cared a lot about um, the human workforce, they would be pushing every single dime into people's pockets right now. They would be out there trying to expand jobs. Um, when Reagan, when he was president, and when he was saying that the rich, they do better, the companies, they do better. Look, that whole trickle down effect, that's a whole false. That has never ever
Materialized into anything
produced
substantial.
around with
Trickle down
exactly.
is a trick. It doesn't work. It clearly doesn't
Trick.
work.
Exactly.
When we see wealth inequity at the highest levels now that it's ever been in history in the United States, I don't think that anyone could ever find any evidence of trickle down working. It has destroyed the economy for almost 50 years now. So I wanted to talk about one more thing before we wrap up, which I just thought this was really appalling. But I saw this article in Politico about Republicans seeing high risk plans as the future of health insurance. More than 40 million Americans are already opting to take on the cost of sick visits, drugs, and surgeries to get lower premiums and tax savings. Hundreds and thousands of Americans have switched to health insurance that covers a lot less of their care this year, and Republicans are hoping that a lot more will follow them. The shift since January was driven by GOP lawmakers' decision at the end of December to reduce the help the government provides to people who don't get insurance through work, but instead buy it on the Obamacare marketplace. The reduction in those subsidies sent Obamacare customers searching for plans that cost less. There's a catch. The cheaper plans don't cover the first several $1,000s in sick visits, drugs, and surgeries a patient needs. Nearly 4 in 10 Obamacare enrollees are in these high deductible plans now compared to 3 in 10 a year ago. President Donald Trump and GOP senators want to encourage more to go that route by shifting remaining Obamacare subsidies, which are now used to reduce monthly premiums, into tax-advantaged savings accounts that come with the high deductible plans. That would be very good for some affluent people in good health who use the saving accounts to accrue wealth, but not so much for others, sicker and poorer people who incur medical bills they can't afford. For many Republicans, that's a worthwhile trade-off, considering the plans also reduce overuse of the healthcare system and put downward pressure on prices. The president clearly has said we need to send money to patients rather than insurers in the system, and building out policies that are consistent with that is important, said Brian Blase, president of the right-leaning Paragon Health Institute and an advisor to Trump in his first term. But the inequitable outcomes for patient troubles others. This is outrageous.
This is just one of these topics that me and you have had before about healthcare, about the healthcare industry. They don't really care about certain people's conditions. They want to make it so much harder for people to pay into the program, especially when it comes down to them having certain conditions where, if they have diabetes, if they have cancer, for example, if they are, if they have any kind of things going on with their bodies, then they have to pay more just to be taken care of. This is stupid, and this is the one of the reasons why. This is the reason why healthcare from the Republican Party, they have never had a plan. They have never had a contingency plan. Okay, They have never had a contingency plan, a thorough thought out plan to cover people. I'm not talking about the few. I'm not talking about the healthy. I'm talking about for everybody. And I'm not, trying to sound like Bernie Sanders, on this one, but when he said that we're the only country that don't really have a universal healthcare system, well, he is absolutely fucking right. We don't. I mean, Obamacare was one of the programs that did a lot for those millions of people who did not have access to healthcare before. They were not, um, they did not have that kind of income to pay into healthcare. That's the reason why they were uninsured. When you had 36 million Americans at that time, they were uninsured. Well, of course, those people were going to have to come up with some kind of money to pay for a hospital bill or to pay for a doctor's visit. And when that conversation went, when Obamacare was a thing, Republicans, they were all against it because they thought it was socialized medicine. We all remember that line. It was socialized medicine. They pushed back on it. They were like, oh, hell no, you're not going to, um, get people to, you're not going to have our tax dollars to fund your healthcare program. My tax dollars, I would rather for my tax dollars to fund people that deserve healthcare than to fund a stupid war like we are with Iran. I would rather for my tax dollars to go to fund a service that helps people, that makes it better for them. Republicans, they don't have any kind of plan to go along with improving the lives of people. And when you had your guest on last week, Omni, I listened to that and I was like, you know what? This is she is a mother who is raising her child, and she mentioned about health insurance being a joke. It is a freaking joke. It literally is a joke. Like, mothers, especially mothers, they are hard workers. They take care of their children. They have to take them to school. They have to feed them. They have to do all of these things. So how dare you got people that look at mothers, for example, and say, well, you don't really deserve that. You deserve to pay more. You're not the elite. This is the exact reason
crazy. It says
why we're in this mess. Something needs to change. And these Republicans don't have a single freaking clue because they would rather for years of people to have their own doctors. Look, people, if they want to keep their doctors, fine. I'm okay with that. But I'm talking about we have millions of people that cannot freaking afford a $400 or $500 insurance a month to just be having insurance. People are out here dying of cancer. Right.
Luckily, I qualified for a great tax credit this year, and I don't know how. It doesn't make any sense because last year I didn't qualify for one. It makes no sense. I don't know how they figure it out. But it says for healthy people with disposable income who've joined the plans, it's worked out. The amount of people have banked in health savings accounts has grown from 3.4 billion in 2007 to an estimated 189 billion now. The money goes in and comes out tax-free to pay healthcare bills. The money can be invested in stocks and bonds. When the owners of the accounts turn 65, they can use the money for anything if they pay the tax on the growth. However, many people opting for these plans do so because the cheaper premiums are the only way they can stay insured, and the average amount enrollees are spending out of pocket on healthcare has ticked up as the plans gain popularity. That's likely to be the case for Obamacare enrollees going with high deductible bronze plans this year. In 2026, the average out-of-pocket deductible payment for a bronze plan is over $7,000. Studies have shown that people with chronic diseases who are enrolled in these plans often skip necessary care or struggle to afford basic medical services. So I have a silver plan right now, which is great. And it's really, really good. I'm very lucky. But these bronze plans that Republicans are encouraging people to sign up for are like a total scam.
You were so spot on. And I was going to make a point about why we're also, why deductibles, why people are paying more for their insurance. That one big, beautiful bill. Yeah, we all remember that one. We all remember when Republicans got together and they were like, hallelujah to this crappy, stupid bill that did nothing to help anybody. That did nothing to help anybody. It really just ratcheted insurance premiums even higher. People are paying more in premiums than they ever did last year, than they did even years before that. That big, beautiful bill also is getting Medicaid for a whole 10-year period. For a whole 10 years, people that are on Medicaid, they're going to get impacted. So this is, just one little chopping block of this, of what they want. And, this is to, of course, we all know with this one big, beautiful bill, this is to enrich the wealthy. It is to enrich the super wealthy. This has nothing to do with lower income people, the middle class. This is to make the rich richer and richer and richer and richer. This is what was in Project 2025, by the way. The plan is to gut services that it benefits the lower income, where it benefits people that are not able. This is the plan. This is the exact plan. And, to talk about that Trump wants to put all this in savings. So my take on that is he basically is telling Americans to pay for their own damn health insurance. He's not in the business to help people. He is trying to get people to pay for their own insurance. Republicans have been wanting that for a long time. Like they have, look, this is the reason why they push back on Obamacare a lot, calling it socialized medicine. They believe that Americans should pay for their own health insurance. They want to privatize insurance. But, we all know what privatizing insurance will do. Privatizing insurance is just only going to benefit just a very few people that are able to afford it. When you got people that are, they don't have the income to pay for their cancer screenings or to pay for their diabetes medications, to pay for, certain things that affect their body. Well, we all know where that's leading to. I mean, we all know where that's leading to. It's a very awful thing to see. It's a very awful thing to realize that Republicans, all they want is for people to pay for their own insurance. They feel like if the money just goes into savings, that ain't doing shit. That's not doing anything. That's not getting people by that have to pay for their cancer screenings and for their hospital bills. I mean, are you fucking serious? Are you for real right now? Like, that's a whole joke in itself. That's like that's that's really just awful. It's just completely awful. But yeah, when insurance companies, when also they're in the back with this too. I mean, it's to a point where people, they're just really tired of both people on the side, insurance companies and government, playing this whole game with people's lives. Especially with Republicans, they just don't care. But when Democrats get back into the House and the Senate, once They, if we can get them there needs to be a conversation about universal health care. It has to be a thing. I would rather for my tax dollars to go to people that are the less fortunate, that are unable to take care of themselves because they don't have the income, than people, um, who do have it, but it's going to take, it'd be a whole different topic with this conversation
Right.
maybe later.
Every Republican policy since 1980 has been engineered to benefit the wealthy at the cost of the poor. And that's the bottom line. But I think for this week, we can wrap on that and we can continue this conversation the next time you're on, because you will definitely be back in June. So I wanted to say thank you all for listening. That's going to do it for this episode of the Henry Hudson Hour. Big thanks again to Jarvis Lampley for coming on and having a real thoughtful conversation. If you enjoyed the episode or have any thoughts, feel free to reach out. I'd love to hear from you. You can find the show on Instagram at Henry Hudson Hour or send me an email at henryhudsonhour@gmail.com. And as always, the music in this episode was done by John Bartman. Thanks for listening, and I'll catch you in the next episode of the Henry Hudson Hour. And next week, I believe I have my friend George as a guest. So I'm excited to introduce y'all to him. All right. Thank you, Jarvis.
Thank you so much, Henry, for always having me and to just get the word out about everything. So I hope that everybody enjoys their day, and I will see y'all next time.
Yeah, for sure. And we can continue our conversation on healthcare coverage next time.
Yes, indeed.
All right. Thank you, Jarvis, so much. I hope you have a wonderful afternoon.
Okay, you too. And bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye.